Still have to hit the button.
I got it.
One time, you're good to go.
All right. Okay, thanks for being patient, everyone. We're here for City Council meeting tonight. It is Monday, July 6th, 2020, and we'll start this meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom.
Here.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Here.
Evans.
Here.
Drew. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. And now, I don't believe we have an invocator tonight, so in place of an invocation, we'll have a few moments of silence, and then following that, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would join me. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just a show of hands, who in the audience is here for general public comment? That is, comment other than something that's on the agenda. Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure I had enough forms for you. Okay, now we're going to start up on old business, and it's termed that way because we have the old city council, the 2019-2020 council seated up here right now. So we're going to handle some items here before we say goodbye to the two departing council members and swear in the new. So under old business, under non-public hearing items 1 through 5, we will open comment on those items. And I have several speaker requests for item number 5. So the first one, and this is how we'll do it tonight. When I call your name, come to the podium over here. You'll have 3 minutes for your comments. You can watch these lights over here. They're just like traffic lights. Just as a challenge for tonight, try not to repeat the exact same thing the person before you said. We'll save some time. Okay? First up at the podium, Holly Soper. You can have your own time.
I'm in there too.
Okay. And this will be Jared Tomac?
Correct. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. You may have received some email correspondence from me over the weekend. I have very, very recently been hired by the RV Ministries as it relates to their request for conditional use permit at 112 East North Street. I'd like to begin by commenting on the fact that this is on the old business agenda. This is a mayoral veto has never been conducted as old business by the Rapid City Council. I believe this is a new business matter. This is a item that has a new number because it's a reconsideration, which is a new matter before the council. And as a preliminary matter, I would request that, obviously I can't make any points of order, but if any of the council members would be in agreement with me, I would ask that they make a point of order as to this item being on the old business agenda, given the fact that it appears to be new business and has never been handled as old business by the council that I found in my review. And if no one is interested in making that point of order, I would substantively bring up, my clients have presented their request for conditional use permit to the Planning Commission, and then it was presented at the June 15th hearing, obviously before this council. And it was voted to pass by this council 5-4. Some of the things that were addressed at that hearing included concerns about the railroad, included some concerns about traffic, all of those things. And towards the end of the hearing, I think it was the last or second to last item, and there was a colloquy that caused some confusion about times of operation, and Mr. Mayor addressed that in his letter. As a preliminary, I would like to address that concern. My client's hours of operation would be on Sundays, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and each day of the week, Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. And each day of the week, it would be from 4 o'clock p.m. to 8 p.m. Sometime at the last hearing, they said 10. I believe that's what the mayor included in his objections. And that time is important because that's when the Hope Center closes, is at 4. And part of the gap that they're filling is the use of the time from the when the Hope Center closes till 8 o'clock when they're going to close. We have some concerns with people being out downtown, and I see my time has expired. If I can go into my 3 minutes.
Go ahead and use Holly's time now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my concern would be, when the Hope Center closes at 4 o'clock, this service that my clients are providing starts at 4. We have a conglomeration of some disaffected people downtown, and that's sometimes when their communications and their visits, as I'm sure Acting Commissioner Hendrick would be able to, or Acting Chief Hendrick would be able to talk about, and other law enforcement, is that a lot of those contacts happen after the Hope Center closes. This is going to be a service that can provide a place for someone to go. It's going to provide them a hot meal every day. Some of the issues that were raised, I'll skip to the point. We can find an issue anywhere. If we're looking for a dangerous condition, we can find it. If we're going to say that East North Street is dangerous for people to be at this location, there are times that it's going to be dangerous. But it's also dangerous at the Hope Center. There's high traffic downtown. There's high traffic on St. Joseph Street. There's high traffic at other places across this city. And my clients have raised how they're going to address those things. They have indicated that they're going to have a cross guard on duty. And at this location, the city has put in crosswalks. They're already there. The East North Street has included braille at the crosswalk where you go to cross the street. These things are set in place by the city as a reasonable place to cross the street. Some other things that I raised in my letter include the fact that many of this population who may be coming to this location for the conditional use won't be crossing East North Street. If they cross Rapid Creek at 5th Street, East Boulevard, or anywhere west of there, they're already on the right side of the road. So our concerns about the street, I think, are misplaced. Railroad, also misplaced. There's a railroad directly behind the Cornerstone Mission with a fence right next to it. We've raised this as a concern, or we've raised this as a response to some concerns that they have about the railroad being there, they've agreed to put a fence in. And then the railroad has indicated that they don't want a fence there because it could be an obstruction. From one end of that property line to the other are trees about 6 or 8 feet tall that you cannot see through. So if the railroad is saying that the fence is an obstruction, that is not going to allow a pedestrian to see a train, well, the trees are there already. My point with all of this is that my client has been in the community, they've seen where the gap is, and I don't want us to lose the forest for the trees. We can find a harm or a damage anywhere. And if we want this type of, my clients aren't asking for money from the city, they're not asking to be financially benefited, they're simply asking for the approval to allow this body to give them the ability to do what they do, and that's serve people. I see my time's expired. I believe there may be one other person who would cede her time to me.
Kathy Harris, Eileen Desmond. Okay.
Thank you. And that's really where where my client's point is. Mr. Mayor's letter asked you as council members to not allow our emotions or the good tensions of an applicant to place other already vulnerable people at undue risk. And my client is calling on you to consider that sometimes the medicine is worse than the disease. That's the point I've been trying to make, is that we can go find that damage wherever we want to find it, and we can find that harm wherever we want to find it, and the risk. But the limited risks that have been outlined in this whole agenda are, the limited risks that are outlined during this process are not in fact undue. They aren't, because these people are getting a service, they're getting something that is really going to take a draw and help these other people who are providing. Not only the benefit that they themselves are providing, but they can draw down against those that are being provided by Cornerstone, against those that are being provided by the Hope Center. And these risks are not of such a nature as to forego the public service that my client has to offer. And with that, I'm finished with my comments. I would be happy to answer any questions if anyone has them.
Okay, the council may have some questions when we're taking up this item in just a minute. Next to the podium, Kathy Harris.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Harris, and I'm the former president of the RV ministry. I also am the owner of the building. I believe there was some confusion at the last city council meeting about where the building came from, who owns the building, how the RV ministry is getting the building. I own the building personally, but it is under a limited liability called James 2 to protect myself and my family. I am allowing the RV ministry to use the building for the cost of the utilities of the building. It sounded in the mayor's letter that all of you received that I was doing something kind of shady or underhanded or secretive. That's not the case at all. I am not a business person. I am a people person. I love people. I work with people. I love the homeless population and have been working with them for 6 years. There was nothing shady or underhanded about me purchasing the building and allowing the RV ministry to use it at all. It was pure heart that I want the ministry to be able to have a building to serve our population that we serve. Nothing more, nothing less. I just needed a place for us to continue the use of providing services. We've been at the Boys Club for 3 years. We were started in a camper 6 years ago. And it's a great opportunity for us to have a place where we can meet people, where we can work with people and have them know that there's a safe environment to go to. We have gotten 18 people off the streets from the street level through the RV ministry. They are now tax-paying citizens. They have apartments, they have jobs, and we have done all that in the front seats of our cars. We just need a place to continue to provide services for these people where they're slipping through the gaps, through the Hope Center, through the Care Campus. One Heart isn't even open yet, so there's no opportunity for anyone there yet. We just need a place to continue to help these people who are struggling with life. And yes, many of them have addictions, and we deal with that. We have classes, we have NA, we have all kinds of opportunities that we would be able to provide for people if we have a place to provide that. The front seat of our cars aren't working anymore because the population is so large, as I'm sure you all know. Thank you.
Roberta Harmon.
Hello, my name is Roberta Harmon. I'm the director of a street outreach called Why Me? It's quite fitting, why me? I'm here to tell you that Kathy Harris and the RV ministry is giving me my life back, just like they are giving others their lives back. When she said we operate out of our car, you might have seen a green venture that looks like I live in it. I do, as well as everyone else I serve. You will find bolt cutters in there to work on bikes. You will find tools to fix things. You will find snacks. You will find jackets. I have 1 seat available out of a 7-seat van. What I found is that you folks would like to change the city so that you can change the people. So you make ordinances and regulations and laws, hard lines on no trespass downtown, panhandling orders, none of which we don't agree with. I think no one's had a chance to say that. We agree with many, 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 many things here in this city. But you want to change the city so you can change the people. The RV ministry and other street ministries would like to change the people so we could change the city. If they're not downtown, if they're not hassling the tourists, if they're not doing all these things that are actually very disruptive to the way they feel about themselves, they might have an opportunity. I just want to tell you that she's giving me my life back. I maybe can close up my, gym membership where I've never lifted a weight, but I've taken lots of folks for a shower because you could bring a guest. And it was much cheaper than Laundry World or the truck stop because as unfunded ministries that we work on our own paychecks that are at jobs, retail, that I see every day, that I don't want the things that are happening in our city to continue. All the broken windows at the gas stations. We don't want any of those things. We want to change the people so we can change our city. And I believe that Rapid City can be a radical example that others across this nation could follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Tanya Andreessen.
Hello, I'm Tanya Andreessen. Thank you, City Council and Mayor. I commend RV Ministries for what they're doing and the heart for our community and our people. I am coming from a safety standpoint a little bit. I am the owner of Parkway Laundromat across the street, and I think safety is an issue there. We do have multiple people crossing the street. In fact, I went there yesterday morning to open up my store, and between 7:10 and 7:40, a 30-minute period of time, I saw 7 people walk across the street directly right in front between the 2 buildings. There isn't any monitoring going on. Right now it is somewhat safer because of the road construction, only 1 lane each direction, as well as a little green slow man that they put out in the middle of the road. But my concern in 5 years of owning this business is we have seen multiple accidents. We have seen people hit by cars. We have approached the city once before and had the Rapid Ride bus stop moved, even though it was very convenient for us. It was right in front of our store. It was convenient for us, convenient for our customers, because it was not safe. At the curve in that hill of people going 40+ miles an hour, they cannot see pedestrians in the street. Sunday morning, at least there is light. My real concern, even more, is when we go to the evening hours and we're in the dark. So I don't know if something can be done to address that. I mean, I do believe in what they're doing. I think it is good, but I think we do need to address the safety concerns related to that, because sometimes the clients visiting there are not totally of sound mind, and they are coming straight into that street and the traffic that is there. I would love to work with them and reach out if there is something that we can do. We do volunteer work at the Hope Center. We do a lot with Love Inc. But I think that dismissing the safety concerns of their clients is an important thing to look at in this, because it is a real factor. I did email, as well as I do have pictures available. These were taken through my car window as I was arriving and leaving, but within a half an hour there were 7 people going back and forth across the street in that time frame. I guess I'll leave it with that. That's my main concern, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go back just a little bit to consent items, items 1 through 3. Motion to approve by Lewis and second by Armstrong. All in favor of approving consent items 1 through 3, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, I've been notified that the applicant in item 4 would like to postpone this item until the July 20th council meeting. Motion by Lewis and a second by, was it Lehman? All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And now for item 5. Presentation of mayor's written objection and veto of the request by Catherine Harris for a final plan development overlay to allow emission in the general commercial district for property generally described as being located at 112 East New York Street, East North Street, which the council approved June 15th, 2020. Before I turn it over to the council for debate, I just want to say I looked at this item, did an in-depth look at it in terms of the safety of the neighborhood, the recommendations of the city's professional community development staff, or better known to some as planning and zoning staff, took into account the goings-on at the Planning Commission meeting. And I think the primary issue here, there's 2 issues that I base the veto on. Number 1 is public safety. We had some testimony just a little while ago that the clients would maybe use a crosswalk, or you know, how they get to the business or the location at 112 East North Street. And I just have to say, I know and we know from experience that there's quite a bit of foot traffic on railroad tracks, quite a bit on sidewalks, and this is again a sidewalk that is right up next to the street. And this is a tough call. But in our experience, which spans decades of monitoring, helping, and responding to incidents involving the homeless community, I think all of us here in the chain of events that I just mentioned, from staff to Planning Commission to some of the council members and myself, have come to believe that this is too dangerous, and not a matter of if something happens, but when. So that's the first issue, is public safety. And the second issue was, as Kathy mentioned, there was some confusion at the last meeting. There was a written plan, and then there was verbal conditions spoken at that meeting. And I think after the vote, it was not clear to me, I don't believe the record was clear on what the conditions of the conditional use permit was. So part of this is a public safety issue, and part of it's a procedural issue. I think the record was not clear. And that, on something this important, there should be no doubt about what the conditions are, because once approved, it will be approved forever. I don't think there's a case in our history where we've issued a conditional use permit and then gone back and revoked it. So that is the gist of the reason for the veto. I feel badly that RV Ministries is caught in this dilemma. I know some folks might be upset about this, but I'm doing here what I believe needs to be done for the common good. Now we'll go to Council Member Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple questions for Jared Tomac, and then I'd like to ask a couple questions of Chief Hedrick, please.
Okay.
So, Jared, from what I gather, if this is not approved tonight, that you guys would like to look at a possible trial period. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure. If the council would not vote to override the veto, we would ask that they consider other conditions. If as the Mr. Mayor indicated, if there are some confusion about the conditions, I would request that this council consider putting on some conditional period and saying, this cause is so worthy that we would like to look at this and say, let's review it in 6 months or 9 months or a year or whatever time frame the council deems appropriate, to say there hasn't been an issue. They have monitored crosswalks. They have had crossing guards, people outside.
I'm going to interrupt you right
Yes.
there, because you say you have volunteers for this, but this morning, clearly, there was no one there to help people across the street. So what am I to gather from that particular report? If they weren't there this morning, when are they going to start?
They would be there during the hours of operation of when the entity is operating. So if we're operating from 4 to 8, when people are coming in, when it's needed, that's when a crossing guard would be there. When the pedestrian flow of traffic is toward 112 East North Street, that's when the people would be there.
Okay, and who's in charge of this business?
The RV Ministries is run by a board, and the president of the board is here, Holly Soper.
Okay.
And so that's a clear record. She has recently become president of the board, and as was indicated in previous testimony, that there was a changing of the guard when the building was purchased.
Okay, I get that that's run by a board, so what was Kathy's position in this? She's just the owner of the business?
Kathy is the owner of the business. I believe her title with the entity is a purchasing agent. She assists with buying foodstuffs and things associated with RV Ministries. At this time, she is not on the board, nor is she an officer thereof.
Well, I understand, and this is important to me. I would really love to see this thing happen. But, for someone to come in front of us and not know their own business plan and to claim that they have no business experience really confuses me, because this is definitely a business.
Absolutely.
So I would like to see something more along those lines before I say yes to this. Again, I did go into it, full-hearted support of it last time, but there's some questions I have at this point. And I'm going to go to Chief Hedrick, please. Thank you, Chief. So I understand that with this particular group, there might have been some problems in the past that we weren't really aware of when we made these decisions. Could you tell me anything about their responsibility in regard to some warming centers that happened a while back? Was that the RV Ministries?
Yes, correct. This would have been 2017 and 18 timeframe, where they did stand up some warming shelters at that point, and we, at the time, advised that if they were going to do that, they should take into consideration things like making sure that folks weren't using alcohol in the facility, making sure that men and women were separated in the shelter itself. We gave suggestions like that.
And none of them were followed, is that correct? And that then there was disruption in these centers and they were closed down, is that right?
Well, I can't attest to every single warming shelter they stood up, but we do know there were some significant problems a couple different times.
And they do a soup kitchen feed, is that correct? Is that something that you guys do? You guys do anything like that, or is that, am I misinformed?
Yeah.
What's that?
They do biscuit and gravy on Sunday mornings.
And where does that happen? Right now in the building, outside of Before that, before the building? Boys Club. Okay, then I have no further questions because what I had was kind of irrelevant on that. So, okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Chief. Thank you.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to uphold the mayor's veto, and then I'd like to have the floor.
Second by Lewis. Go ahead,
Can I ask Mr. Landine a question?
please.
Joel, their attorney came forward and said that this should go into new business instead of old business. I don't agree with that. I think this is something that the old council had voted on, so it should stay with the old council. But would you give us your legal opinion on that?
Yeah, and the statute, there really isn't any guidance. Looking back on it, I would point out the fact that you've never done a veto as old business. I don't know how significant that is because frankly, we've only been dividing it into new business and old business since 2019 or 18, I think. So you haven't been doing it that long, and I think the paper pointed out this was Mayor Allender's second veto. So there aren't a lot of opportunities to reconsider vetoes.
I know I've been on the council for 9 years, and we've never had a veto that overlapped a new council. You know, I think that in the 9 years I've been on the council, we may have had 5 vetoes total. So anyway, I was just curious because personally, I think this is something that needs to stay in the hands of the old council. We voted on it to begin with. We should finish it or before people step off the council.
And just to follow up on that, that was, I think, the staff decision is that the whole point of having old business is on items, especially like hearing items that the previous council heard already, rather than ask new council members who are just taking their seat to expect them to be completely up to speed on it, have the old council do it. Since the 9 people who are currently sitting on the dais are the ones that voted for it originally and whose decision was vetoed, it seemed to make sense based on the idea of the old business to have it on the old business portion of the agenda.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Becky Drury,
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask Joe Landine a question, please?
please.
Thank you. Mr. Landine, if this veto is upheld, which I will vote to uphold it, but would it or could it ever go back to the Planning Commission?
You know, I don't know what if there's anything in the zoning code about prohibitions. Sometimes there's a prohibition that says you can't bring the same request back for a year. That's probably something we could make an exception to, even if there was, but I'm not sure there is. I think if they wanted to come back and ask for a proposal or a trial period, that's something that they could probably do.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just something that got brought up. We might as well ask the professional that question. Vicki Fisher, do you mind if I ask you that question? I could answer it, but we'll have the professional do it.
Did you see me shaking my head?
Out of the corner of my eye.
So there is a provision within the ordinance that you can't come in and ask for the same rezone for a year. But if it's a conditional use permit or a planned development, you can come right back in if you pay the fee and go through the procedure again. There's no time delay between submittals.
Thank you very much. I just wanted that clarified. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor to uphold the veto. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We'll go on now to consent public hearing items 6 through 8. Would anyone like to remove any of these items, or if not, can we have a motion to approve all 3 by Roberts and a second by Lehman? All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Non-consent public hearing items 9 through 11. Number 9, second reading of ordinance number 6428. An ordinance to clarify the retail sales component for microbreweries as conditional uses in the light industrial district by amending section 17.22.030N of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion approved by Drury and a second by Roberts. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, second reading ordinance 6422, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by the City of Rapid City for a rezoning request from office commercial district to medium density residential district for property generally described as being located north of the intersection of East Stoomer Road and Shelby Avenue. Motion to approve, Lehman, second, Roberts. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, second reading, ordinance 6427, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by the City of Rapid City for a rezoning request from office commercial district to high-density residential district for property generally described as being located at 726 South Street. Motion to approve, Lewis, second by Roberts. Right? All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This takes us to the end of our old business. We're going to take, for item 12, we're going to take a minute and recognize some outgoing members. Could I get Chad Lewis to come down, please? Okay, Becky, he wants you to go first. All right, Chad can get what he wants one more time. Well, this is that one council meeting following an election cycle where we thank the outgoing members of the council, we swear in the new members, and so Becky Drury joined the council in 2017 in Ward 1. She's been a good addition to the council. She's gotten along well with people. She knows how to work together as a group, as a team. And one of the things that's annoyed me the most is that she seems to be overly optimistic whenever I'm in a foul mood. And so that's really, in the scheme of things, a very positive attribute. And so we're sad that Becky's leaving, but we're very happy for her service. And so, Becky, we have a little plaque to give to you.
Thank you.
And as we pose for a picture here with Darrell.
I just want to say that it's been an honor to serve on this council. It's always an honor to step up and serve your community, and I would encourage others to reach out and do the same thing because you gain more than your constituents do. I work with a tremendous crew up here. No, we don't always vote the same, but I never walked out of this room feeling like one of them didn't like me or were mad at me. We have a great staff that I was able to utilize many times to find out answers to questions. And it was always for the constituents. And I think that's what we need to stand up and be, is just servant leaders. Because I'm not here for me, I'm here for my constituents in Ward 1. And I feel like answering their questions and listening to them has just helped me grow as a person, and I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to serve them the last 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Chad Lewis is a Ward 3 council member for his second time. This last 3 years has been his second time on the council. So he came to us this time in 2017. I'm sure, as Chad will attest, being on the city council, and as Becky mentioned, serving in the public is not as glorious as it may seem. There's some hurt feelings out there, there's some hard feelings about the votes you have to take, but what is admirable is that we get normal people from society, from our community, to step forward into these roles, and in some cases sacrifice their time, their energy, and sometimes their relationships that they have made throughout the course of their lives. So it's a very admirable thing to do, and we appreciate Chad very much. He has a sense of humor that is very unique, and I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. He's a guy. He and I text sometimes, and we have about the same level of sarcastic language there. So anyway, Chad, we're very pleased to have you this last 3 years. Thank you for everything you've done.
Thanks, sir. Where are these damn things when you're not doing stuff like this? Just telling you. And my kids are going to heckle me for getting a participation trophy. They don't like them. We don't talk about them in our family much, but thought I was done talking, right? Nah, I've been up here long enough. I just want to say thanks to a few people really quick, if I could. First of all, thank the mayor for moving general public comment till after I'm off. Definitely want to take a time just to recognize the staff and thank them. These last few 6 months or so have been really educational for me. They've been very good professionals. I mean, I've really been impressed by their way they've shouldered on through all this experience. It's been no easy thing to do, and I've learned to appreciate them a lot more. They've taught me a lot myself, so I want to say thank to them for sure. To my fellow council members, we don't always get along. That's part of it, and as the mayor said, I'm a unique guy. I definitely have my issues with people sometimes, but I always do respect the fact that we're all up here doing this, and we've been going through a very, very unusual time, very unique time, hard time for everybody. And this COVID thing, no one knows what it's called a novel virus for a reason, right? It's all brand new. We're learning as we go. And if we've all made mistakes, or people think we've made mistakes, we're just doing our best. Even Mr. Roberts and I, we might not agree, but I do appreciate his points. He's made, he's willing to stand up for that, and that's something we should admire. And I just think there's some things we need to work on, though. As I leave, it's a little advice I like to give, and take it or leave it, it's free, so. But I just think it's very important that when you're up here doing this job, you try not to vet things from the dais. You vote yes or no, and you go on. You don't try to vet projects. I've seen projects killed from the dais because people were talking about them too much and deriding them from the dais, like the President's Plaza, things like that. So make sure that you just, you try to explain yourself, but without attacking the project or the person bringing it forth, because it takes a lot of guts to stand up there and stand for this council. It's not easy to do. So, I just voted no against something I actually approve of, but I didn't like, I wanted to go with the staff recommendations. But I'm not going to sit there and say anything about that, the project itself, negatively. That's not the way to work this when you're in this job. You got to take that seriously and remember that. And please always remember that when things come forward, like, the landfill issue that came forth a couple weeks ago, the media jumped on it, and everybody saw $700,000. Well, that was budgeted, folks, and we knew that ahead of time. But suddenly everybody felt like they had to run for political cover and question it. Well, no, it was already there, and you need to stand behind that kind of stuff. You need to be able to educate yourself enough to know that and to stand up and say, hey, this is what's going on. Because the public, you have to be honest with the public as much as possible. So they're never going to trust you. If you're not honest, they're not going to trust you. And that's what the situation with this COVID, this virus is like. I sometimes have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm doing my best, but I'm trying my best to respond to the times. And I think that's what everybody up here is trying to do. So I just want to say very much, that's the kind of thing we need to work on. It's, it's all about the team. It's all about doing what's best for the city. I voted against my own special interests, personal interests, whatever, several times up here, and that's okay. That's what I was elected to do. So, I want to be funny. I want to make jokes, and I want to make this light, but it's not really the time in life to do that. So I'm going to leave you with the words of a famous 20th century philosopher that I found I think are kind of poignant for the moment. And it goes a little something like this. We're no strangers to love. We know the rules, you know the rules, and so do I. A full commitment's what I'm thinking of. You wouldn't get this from any other guy. I just want to tell you what I'm feeling. Got to make you understand. Never going to give you up. Never going to let you down. Never going to run around and desert you. Never going to make you cry. Never going to say goodbye. Never going to tell a lie and hurt you. And as my good friend Matt Galbraith, who recently passed away, would say, peace out, Napoleon.
We just got rickrolled. Thanks, everyone. We're going to take a short recess now, a matter of seconds or a minute or two, to reset for the swearing of the new city council members.
Social distancing. John, where'd he go? Name. Solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or for the purpose of evasion, that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of the office of, state your ward, Alderman, Rapid City Council, Rapid City, South Dakota, according to the law and to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations. And now I need you to sign 2 copies of this, and then we'll get them notarized and give you a copy back.
There's the podium over here. Can you sign?
I gave Pat one.
Okay, welcome back. We'll resume the meeting now. And I would ask the new 2020-2021 council to adopt this agenda. This is a time when the council members can adopt the agenda as written or may make certain alterations to it. Would there be a motion? Second. Motion by Armstrong, second by Nordstrom for adopting the agenda. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And now items 14 is when we elect the city council president. And this is an election between the members who are seated here to pick their own position of president. So we'll start out this phase of the meeting by asking if there are any nominations for the role of council president. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I nominate Laura Armstrong.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for council president? Any other nominations for council president? If not, we have one nomination for council president. Someone make the motion that the nominations cease. So moved. Motion by Jones and a second by, was it Greg? Okay. So nominations have ceased, and thereby default, we have Laura Armstrong elected as city council president. Congratulations. And now on to item 15 is the election of the council vice president. Same process. John Roberts.
I'd like to nominate Lance Lehman.
Okay, we have a nomination for Lance Lehman for council vice president. Are there any other nominations for council vice president? Any other nominations for council vice president? If not, someone would make the motion to cease the nominations. Second. Motion by Roberts and a second by Greg Stroman. So then we have one candidate for council vice president. So by default, Lance Lehman is elected council vice president. Congratulations. Okay, on with business. Item 16 is a presentation from Black Hills Energy on the Rapid City Transmission Line Rebuild Project. And if you would, sir, just introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Despite what the agenda says, I'm not much use Sarah. My name is Mark Ayre. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Black Hills Energy. And I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to provide a brief update on a critical transmission line rebuild that we're going to be doing here in Rapid City. We did create a PowerPoint presentation. Technology isn't working with us this evening, so I believe we have handouts for each of the council members. And then we also have a fact sheet if anybody in the audience would like to see that as well. So again, just a little bit of background on this. I'll start in slide 5 of the presentation. And this just shows the regional transmission system. And you can see here, we essentially have 3 transmission lines that bring energy into the area, and they serve 3 transmission substations, which then step the voltage down and then distribute that energy through the town, serving neighborhoods and distribution substations. And so the line that we want to update the council on tonight in our plans to upgrade and rebuild is if you look on the presentation, the orange line that runs north-south from Lang to South Rapids substation. And so really a critical piece of that electrical infrastructure that ties those transmission substations together. So looking at moving on to slide 6, just looking at the need for this rebuild. It was originally built in 1964, so 55 plus years old. As we continue to do ongoing maintenance, regular inspections, it was identified in part of our planning process that line needs to be rebuilt and upgraded to the modern material and current construction standards. Moving to slide 7, you can see a closer look at the project. So in total, it's 8 miles, and we're going to break it into 2 phases. And the reason we're doing that is that allows us to not have any service interruption to customers during the construction period. So the first phase, which will begin first, begins north of I-90 and then runs south 2 miles, essentially ending at Omaha area. And it ties into our new West Rapid City substation. So we'll take that out of service first, and I'll provide a timeline in one of the later slides. The second phase is 6 miles, and it starts right where phase 1 leaves off, goes south through Mountain View Road, and then kind of on the west side of the foothill there, and then crosses Skyline Drive, Mount Rushmore Road, and continues south, south of Catron Boulevard. So again, breaking those into 2 phases, able to de-energize one section of line while we rebuild it, energize it, and then do the next phase so we don't lose service to customers through the project. So moving to slide 8, just kind of outlines the scope. Again, this line has been there since the mid to early 1960s, so we're replacing in place an existing right-of-way. So essentially new structures. The only exception to that is the section that runs along in front of Bacon Park in the Mountain View area. Those poles were installed in the mid-2000s, like 2007, I want to say. And so they're in good condition. Those get reconductored, new wire. No new structures there, but everywhere else throughout the 8 miles will get new structures as well. Another key component of this is some of the terrain is pretty difficult to access along that right-of-way, and so with this project we're working to improve access for ongoing maintenance. So as we need to work on that line, having easier access to maintain it. Moving to we can move to slide 10. This kind of just shows what the new structures will look like. They'll be wood pole H-frame structures. They average 65 to 70 feet tall and about, depending on the span and where it is, on average about 900 feet in between structures for each span. So really, environment is key for us. Being an existing right-of-way since the 1960s, the vegetation is already cleared out of that right-of-way, for wildfire prevention and reliability. And so really no issues there, but we've continued and work closely with the landowners along the right-of-way, and we'll work closely with them as we remediate any issues that might come up during construction. Looking at again, just the high-level benefits, really what's driving this project is just replacing aging infrastructure, improve reliability, and really strengthen the transmission system in this area, and then allow for better access for maintenance on the line going forward. Moving to slide 12, you can see the timeline. So we've started some preparation work already in late June. Due to the critical nature of this line, we cannot take it out of service during the summer peak loads, and so later in September we'll be able to take that first phase out of service, maintain service to customers, complete the first phase in November of this year, and as soon as that's placed in service, then we'll begin taking outage on the second phase, and that will be completed, as you can see, in March of 2021. The next couple slides just show a more detailed schedule of some of the groundwork that will be done, prep work before the outage is taken and poles are set. So you can reference those for both phase 1 and phase 2 of the project. I think just to wrap things up, safety is a top priority at Black Hills Energy, not only for our employees, but for our customers and for the communities we serve, and so that's no different with this project. Really looking closely at the contractors we use and make sure that we have proactive communication with the landowners along the right-of-way to ensure their safety during this project. With that, I just wanted to, just a quick update, make you aware of that in case you get questions. Again, some of the construction on phase 1 will start to be visible on the ground. We won't start setting poles until September. But again, a good investment in the reliability of the system here for our customers. And with that, I guess I'd be open to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. What is the cost to Black Hills Energy in this entire project? Because I know you invest a lot in our community, so what is the cost?
Yeah, so the total project cost with phase 1 and phase 2 combined is $5.5 million worth of investment. And at the height of construction, we'll have up to 75 full-time contractors working on that project.
And are you finding any problems getting enough workers for your field right now? I mean, do you have the amount of line workers you need for this kind of project?
Yes, yeah. So this is, we bid this out and awarded it to a regional contractor. So we'll have both internal support and external contractor support on this project.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, sir, where's the current West Rapid City substation and the South Rapid City substation?
Yep. So the West Rapid City substation is on our service center property back behind our building, so on 409 Deadwood Avenue. It's where the old Ben French power plant was. Okay. We built just on site behind there. The South Rapid City substation is that it's a transmission substation that's just south of the new Walmart, south of Catron Boulevard, down in that valley there.
Okay, thank you.
Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Will there be new poles that go up as part of this project, or replacing the old ones, or some of both?
So replacing the old ones. So essentially all those poles that were originally installed in the 60s will be replaced with brand new poles, brand new wire, brand new conductor, whole new line, but in the same right of way. Essentially where there's a pole today, there'll be a pole tomorrow, but just a new pole.
Will there be more poles than there are now?
Not generally. Looking at some of the span lengths to try to, improve reliability. There might be areas where we might add a span, but generally it's essentially the same.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
Okay. Looks like that's all the questions we have, so thank you for the presentation.
Yep, thank you for the time.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. Now, general public comment. This is a time for the members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. And so we have 3 speaker request forms. First one is Drew. And could you tell me your last name when you get up there, please?
Wishon.
Okay, you have 3 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
I'm here as a member of both the community and the Black Hills Community Action Initiative, which is a new group that has been recently established in order to help take direct action to improve living conditions and unity here in Rapid City. You probably know us because we're out protesting Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and have been for quite some time now. So in my time that I've been out protesting with the BHCAI and other groups, I have witnessed some truly reprehensible and irresponsible behavior by officers of the Rapid City Police Department. Some of my concerns are as follows. 1, officers should be wearing masks. Given their frequent interactions with the public, personal opinion regarding the severity of COVID-19 should not exclude an officer of the peace from caring about the most vulnerable among those that they serve. 2, multiple instances have occurred where officers refuse to provide badge numbers, which they are legally required to do. This has been also followed by outright lying about their badge numbers when they do reveal them. This is transparently disingenuous to the public whom they serve and who pays their salary. 3, we have witnessed multiple recorded incidents of police failing to step in and de-escalate aggressive behavior from non-protesters, followed by chastising and demeaning the protesters, while doing nothing about the aggressors. 4, all officers should be required to wear body cams at all times that are recording at all times, and all video should be retained for 90 days and available to an independent civilian review board. If officers of the law are truly officers of the peace, they should have nothing to fear in their own public records. 5, officers must remain in control of a situation without resorting to base and manipulative tactics, condescension, or the language of the bully. These forms of communication are damaging and do not de-escalate a situation. They are disingenuous to the definition of public service and do nothing to create trust between law enforcement and the public. If we want to protect the marginalized and disadvantaged members of our community, as I would hope would be the goal of both the RCPD and the City Council, we must expect respectable and proper behavior from those who have sworn to protect us. And so far, I and my fellow protesters have seen not only a lack of such behavior, but complete rejection of it. I yield my time.
Okay, thank you. Mary Hahn.
My name is Mary Hahn. I'm here today representing the Black Hills Community Action Initiative along with our networked groups to declare disgust at the way that Rapid City has handled resource allocation during the COVID-19 outbreak. Today we ask that the council keep at the front of their mind their mission to allocate funds in ways which meet the needs of all residents. This includes those who experience racial and other forms of discrimination, poverty, disabilities, homelessness, and domestic violence. This means more than stopgap and survival measures and includes some initiative and effort to ensure that our residents can thrive in our community. There are always difficult choices when budgeting funds, and we demand that you remember that those that may not be empowered to assert their needs due to all of the factors above. The mayor tonight keeps talking about keeping public safety as our foremost concern in the case of the RV Ministry's conditional use permit. But where is his concern for public safety when it comes to a global pandemic? There are hundreds of Rapid City residents who are currently quarantined, unable to supply themselves with food, health supplies, and other necessities due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the city has done little to nothing to provide them with assistance. COVID-19 inordinately affects the Indigenous population here, and yet our community response teams have been largely funded, staffed, operated, and trained by us, regular citizens willing to give of our time and resources and energy in order to save lives. There is no excuse for the way that the city has neglected to provide basic health measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The South Dakota governor herself has actively worked at the highest level of government against those protecting their families and their tribal land. It is shocking to me that Rapid City should follow suit with no actual regulations, with the exception of city pools, regarding the size of a gathering, social distancing, or wearing masks, including masking of their own law enforcement officers, some of whom tonight were playing lawn games in close proximity with minors while unmasked at Main Street Square. This obscene disregard for human life was evidenced most clearly by the recent gathering at the sacred Six Grandfathers Mountain, which was presided over by an unwelcome man who guides this nation to destruction with his divisive rants. Rapid City had the chance to endorse the CDC's recommended regulations for gathering in Main Street Square, where Trump's speech was broadcast. Instead, we had a handful of measly signs suggesting social distance to hundreds of out-of-state tourists who refused to wear masks. It's unsafe to live in Rapid City, where we spend $15 million on an overfunded police force, yet you claim you cannot come up with the funds to provide proper care to our most needy citizens. I'm saddened by the leadership that has been displayed at various levels of government throughout this pandemic. Remember why you are in your role: to actively serve the members of our community, especially the least of these. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Andrew Hewitt.
Good afternoon. Something wrong happened this Friday, and it's the responsibility of government officials on every level to make it right. On July 3rd, I witnessed Native American protesters conduct a peaceful demonstration in Keystone, which involved blocking the highway leading to Mount Rushmore. This protest was met with violent resistance from law enforcement agencies, such as the Pennington County Police and the National Guard. Decked out in full riot gear, I watched a line of shields and batons violently push back protesters, watched as my friend ran from person to person, flushing out eyes burned by mace, and I watched as the Indigenous protesters held strong, never once instigating violence, using their words to try to explain their right to be there. And what was their right to be there? I'm sure none of you need reminding that the Native Americans were lawfully declared to have ownership of the Black Hills in 1868 in the Fort Laramie Treaty. When white settlers found out there was gold in this land a few years later, they invaded the Black Hills, and we've been illegally occupying the area ever since. In 1980, even the Supreme Court ruled this land had been illegally seized. The government offered the Sioux Nation a multi-million-dollar settlement, but they refused. No amount of money was worth giving up this land to a group of people who demonstrably only know how to deface and exploit it. Fast forward to just a few days ago, and Native American leaders such as Nick Tilson are still fighting for their right to this land with astonishing bravery and resolve. Upwards of 12 protesters were arrested on Friday, myself included. We were sent to what one officer described to me as a makeshift jail with completely inadequate protections against the pandemic that we are all still living in. Nick Tilson was kept in this unsafe environment for several days and is facing the harshest charges of any of us, potentially facing upwards of 10 years in jail. I'm disgusted by this state's response to a peaceful demonstration, disgusted that this government has no problem being the first one to escalate to violence over a highway to a sculpture of 4 white supremacists carved by white supremacists defacing sacred land. I'm disgusted the National Guardsmen enacting this violence adorned no name tags and no identifiers, and thus will be faced with no accountability. I'm disgusted that while transferring us from bus to the holding cell, we were forced to take off our masks in the presence of several jail officials not wearing masks. Disgusted that when I asked them to provide me with one, I was met with a shrug and a sorry. But probably what disgusts me the most is the system of government that allowed all of these things to happen. Now, I don't want the council to send down a new police chief to tell me some legal loophole that excuses this. And I don't want a council member to explain to me why Native Americans defending themselves against violence is somehow the same as being violent. I don't care. What I saw was wrong, and we have the power to start trying to make things right. A government body as prominent as the City Council of one of South Dakota's most populous cities has a lot of influence. That's why I'm calling on all of you today to join me in denouncing the violence and unjust use of state force this Friday. Join me in demanding that all the laws allowing the National Guard or any law enforcement agency to enact such violence are abolished. Join me in demanding that the charges against Nick Tilson and the other protesters are dropped immediately. And join me in calling the state to meet all of the demands outlined by the NDN collective responsible for organizing the protest, which can be found at bhlegalfund.org. The time is now to give this sacred land back to the people who understand it. Thank you.
Thank you. And that takes us through our general public comment period. Now on to non-public hearing items, items 17 through 71. And we are getting some hail out there, folks, and in case you want to stick around for a while. There's no way out of it. We don't have any speaker request forms for 17 through 64, so we will not have a open public comment. So consent items 17 through 64, would the council like to pull any of these items or approve as one? Darla Drew.
Sorry. I'd like to pull item 47 and item 53.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull item 55.
Okay, seeing no one else is in the queue, so can we have a motion to approve the consent items with the exception of 47, 53, and 55? Motion by Armstrong, second by Stroman. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 47. Confirm the appointment of Kelly Arguello to the Planning Commission to fill the unexpired term vacated by Galen Hoogstraat, and confirm the appointment of Haven Stuck to the Planning Commission to fill the unexpired 3-mile representative term vacated by Kelly Arguello.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I don't see any, who is here from the Planning Commission or possibly anyone that could answer a question about this appointment? Karen, are you gonna? Okay. I don't really have a problem with it. It's just I need some clarity, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so Kelly Arguello is going to fill the unexpired term, but then Haven Stuck is going to fill the unexpired term from Kelly Arguello. What, did she move into the city limits? Is that what happened?
Kelly is a gentleman who is on our planning commission.
Sorry.
And that's okay. And he is moving into town, so he can no longer be on the planning commission as an out 3-mile area.
Okay.
And Galen has resigned. He has other things to do. So that spot is open. So Kelly was going to take his place, which is going to be a good thing because he's a great planning commission member. And then Haven Stuck apparently is going to be replacing Kelly's spot because he lives outside the city limits.
Well, I just thought it seemed kind of confusing, and for anybody that really didn't understand who was moving here and where, I like getting a little bit of clarity, and I'm a big fan of Haven Stuck, so I'm glad to see that he's going to serve on this commission as well. So thank you, Karen, for handling that question, and I yield.
Okay, Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Were these spots advertised so other community members could apply for them?
Yes.
Or was it done internally?
No, they were advertised.
Through the city website?
City website and notice to press release.
Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Move to approve.
Okay, second by Laura Armstrong for the approval on item 47. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 53, approve resolution number 2020-059, a resolution authorizing the execution of contractual documents with the state of South Dakota for the receipt of CARES Act funds to address the COVID-19 public health crisis. Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is an important thing that we are considering here. Of course, I can see no reason to object to this. I was just wondering if you would be so kind as to read the resolution so that it could be part of the minutes.
I'll go to Pauline Sumption for a minute. I don't have the resolution with me.
Okay. It's attached.
It's published as part of the minutes, so it is already part of the minutes, if that was your intent.
No, I'd like to have it read.
Other than, we're going to have to wait and get it pulled up on a computer.
Okay. I think it has a lot of important features as to where this money will be going, what our leeway is as far as how you can spend $17.5 million. It's a large amount of money, and I think that people deserve to hear what the resolution is. Not everyone is going to do the deep dive into this and try and find it.
Oh, I've got it, Pauline.
Mayor's got it.
I have it, Pauline.
Thank you for indulging me on this, but I think it's important.
Okay. A resolution authorizing the execution of contractual documents with the state of South Dakota for the receipt of CARES Act funds to address the COVID-19 public health crisis. Whereas, pursuant to Section 5001 of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, publication number 116-136, Division A, Title 5, the CARES Act, the state of South Dakota has received federal funds that may be used to cover the costs that are necessary expenditures incurred during the public health emergency with respect to the coronavirus disease 2019, and were not accounted for in the budget most recently approved as of March 27th, 2020 for the state of South Dakota, and were incurred during the period that begins on March 1st, 2020 and ends December 30th, 2020. And whereas the City of Rapid City acknowledges that the state of South Dakota, in its sole discretion, may retain full use of these funds for the purposes delineated in the CARES Act, and whereas the City of Rapid City acknowledges that in order to provide financial assistance to counties and municipalities in South Dakota, the state of South Dakota, in its sole discretion, may allocate CARES Act funds on a statewide basis to reimburse counties and municipalities as delineated herein. And whereas the City of Rapid City seeks funding to reimburse eligible expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19, and whereas the City of Rapid City acknowledges that any request for reimbursement of expenditures will only be for expenditures that were not accounted for in the budget for the City of Rapid City, most recently approved as of March 27th, 2020. And whereas the City of Rapid City acknowledges that it will only seek reimbursement for costs incurred during the period that begins March 1st, 2020 and ends on December 30th, 2020. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Rapid City that the mayor and finance officer may execute any and all documents as required by the state in order to receive CARES Act funds. It is further resolved that any request for reimbursement will only be for those costs authorized by the state that are necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19, were not accounted for in the city budget most recently approved as of March 27th, 2020, and were incurred during the period that begins on March 1st, 2020 and ends on December 30th, 2020. It is further resolved that the city will not request reimbursement from the state under the CARES Act for costs which the city previously received reimbursement for, or for which the city has a reimbursement request pending before another source.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And I think for people watching, I think they would find that interesting, and then they don't have to look for it. So thank you.
Okay, that was item 53, correct? Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. First, if I may make a motion to approve this, and if I get a second, retain the floor.
Second by Laura Armstrong. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe there's a lot of complexity to this issue, and I appreciate the staff or everybody that's taken a look at this and try to dot the i's and cross the t's on all of these regulations, rules, and guidelines that are coming up on this, because it is complicated, and I salute the staff that's going to be involved in this directly and bringing forward all of the issues that need to be addressed. And hopefully a lot of the issues that we're facing right now will be able to be addressed in a simple fashion. I know it isn't going to be simple, but I have great faith and trust in the staff that's going to be able to handle this. And so I just applaud everybody that's involved in this, and I do want to wish them well and good luck on this. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion for approval of item 53. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 55, acknowledge the 6th and Omaha Crossing Feasibility Study Draft Report. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge this and if I can get a second and retain the floor.
Second by Richie Nordstrom. Go ahead.
Thanks. I may direct some questions to Kip Harrington from
Please.
the Planning Department. Hey, Kip.
Hello.
Had the opportunity to read through this, and forgive me for catching up. I see that this is just the study that we've done to see if it's even possible. It seems to me like the two big outstanding items are going to be the engineering of it and, of course, the funding. This was brought up some months ago, or maybe even longer, and presented to the council. And so what's changed between now and then? Can you just catch me and maybe the public up on this?
Sure. So this is the 6th in Omaha Crossing Feasibility Study. It's done through the Metropolitan Planning Organization in the city of Rapid City. So what this study aims to do is take a look at the possibility of grade separating the crossing at 6th and Omaha Street. And the reason behind it is there's an agreement between the city and the South Dakota Department of Transportation that crossing at 6th and Omaha, which is also known as South Dakota Highway 44 and is a state highway and under the jurisdiction of the South Dakota Department of Transportation, that crossing is a temporary crossing, and when traffic numbers warrant such, the Department of Transportation can remove that crossing at the city's expense, and then that crossing would go away. So we're looking for ways that we can keep that crossing in place, yet still increase the traffic flow on Omaha Street and not have a negative impact. So this study was the first step in a multi-part process to determine if grade separating that intersection is even possible, would work with our traffic system, would work for bicycles and pedestrians, and would also work with our transit system since our bus terminal is located immediately adjacent to that intersection.
So safety, obviously, of pedestrians, our friends walking from Memorial Park to downtown for whatever reason, rather than having that go away, this might be a possibility of ensuring that we continue to have a crossing area?
That's correct. It's a main corridor through downtown. It connects the Performing Arts Center on the south with the Civic Center on the north. It passes by a lot of downtown attractions, restaurants, hotels, goes right by Main Street Square. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic that uses this, especially during large events at the Civic Center. With the addition of the new arena, we anticipate there'll be more people that will want to make that crossing between downtown and the Civic Center. And right now they have to cross at grade across 6 lanes of traffic with almost 30,000 vehicles per day. When you push the light for the pedestrian crossing, some people don't do it. Some people just make the dash. Other people will push the light. And when there's a gap in the traffic, then they'll cross, and then that allows the light to change with nobody there. And so we've seen incidents of drivers not paying attention to the signal, running the signal. We've had multiple pedestrian and bicycle crashes at that intersection. So we're looking at ways to improve safety, enhance the flow of pedestrians between downtown and Memorial Park, and yet keep the traffic flowing on Omaha Street as a state highway.
And acknowledging this today does not commit us to any expenditures at this time.
No, this is the first step in a process. Once we're done with this, then we'll start looking at possible funding opportunities to move this process along. Once we can identify some funding, then we can move into the engineering part, which is where, I mean, a lot of people have concerns about the grade and the water table and things like that, and that's where we address that, is in the engineering, which would be the next phase of this process.
Yeah, those are the two big question marks, funding and engineering. So you definitely know this by reading
We wanted to
report.
make sure that we could just do it with our traffic and transit and bike and pedestrian system before we went deeper into this study and looked at those hard engineering issues.
Smart move. Thank you. I yield.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you. A question for Kip, if I may.
Please.
Thank you. Kip, I really appreciate the report and reading through it, all of the hurdles that you're challenged with and upcoming. But skipping to the next step, I'm interested in that build grant that we have a potential for. I know it's a long ways off, but can you explain just a little bit more about what that means or what it is all about?
Sure. The build grant is a federal grant through the Department of Transportation that focuses on innovative and new types of projects. It's a very competitive process, but there are hundreds of millions of dollars that are awarded every single year for transportation projects throughout the country. So in talking with our Department of Transportation and our Federal Highway Administration representatives, they feel that as this is a very unique project in this part of the country especially, there's nothing like this anywhere around us, this would be a strong candidate for build grant funding, which would pay a large portion of the costs. Then we'd have to identify the match, local match of course, but we have options for that we're exploring as well.
Understand. Thank you. And then, as most everybody knows, that, and you included, is I'm a big supporter of this, and I want to see this happen in some way, some fashion. So, having that grant funding available for us would be quite a coup. And when it comes to the opportunity, and I know you're a long ways away from getting to that build grant application, but I would sure strongly support a resolution from the council to go towards the supporting of this application. And anything else, Kip, that I'm skipping over?
I don't believe so.
Thank you. I'll yield.
Pat Jones.
Are copies of this draft report available to look at for the community or us?
They're available on the Rapid City Metropolitan Planning Organization website at rapidcityareampo.com. There's also a 6thstreetstudy.com website, which the report is on as well as all of the supporting documentation that got us to this point.
Being the new guy, I'm going to ask a new guy question, if I may. Is this the project that wanted to lower Omaha at that point in order to allow for traffic and things?
We're looking at some sort of grade separation, but we have not determined that yet, whether we perform some sort of tunnel for bicycles and pedestrians, perform some sort of bridge for bicycles and pedestrians, or we've also explored the option of a hybrid system, which would slightly lower Omaha Street and then arch 6th Street up and over the top of it. So that's part of the engineering that would come after this.
And these are all in initial draft stages?
That part has not even been started yet. This is just the feasibility to ensure that if we were to remove the 6th and Omaha intersection from vehicular and our transit system traffic, would it still work? And the study states that this works great with our bike and pedestrian system. Obviously, taking bikes and pedestrians away from moving vehicles is a boon for safety, and it increases the connectivity. We discovered that it has no significant impacts on the surrounding intersections and actually may help in the future by removing that signal from 6th and Omaha. It will not create traffic backing up through the 5th Street intersection while vehicles are stopped at 6th and Omaha. And then it has a very small effect on one of our transit routes that would just change the timing of a few of the stops on that one route. And so that was something that we feel we can work with.
So no matter what's done, I encourage people to look at those sites to get familiar with those, because that's going to be a big deal as we move forward. Could you please say again where folks can find those?
The easiest one to get to is 6th Street Study, spell it out, SIXTH, and 6thstreetstudy.com, and this draft report will be right on the front page.
So spell out 6th and spell out street and spell out study?
That's correct.
.com.
Yes.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I yield.
Okay, we have a motion to acknowledge. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us through consent items, now to non-consent. We have no speaker requests for these items. We won't have a public comment period. We'll start with ordinances under item 65. First reading, Ordinance 6426, an ordinance amending Section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for BH Capital 4 LLC for a rezoning request from General Agricultural District to Light Industrial District for property generally described as being located southeast of the intersection of North Creek Drive and Eglin Street. Motion to approve by Drew, second by Solomon. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 66, first reading of ordinance 6423, an ordinance amendment to recodify establishment and organization of the Historic Preservation Commission by removing section 17.54.010E and adding chapter 2.62 to the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion to approve by Nordstrom, second by Jones. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 67, first reading of ordinance 6434, an ordinance amendment to revise the requirement for a plan development overlay by amending section 17.50.050 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion approved by Drew, second by Lehman. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now on to community development items, starting with item 68. A request by Dream Design International for Yasmin Dream 111 LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 24 through 62 of Block 2, lots 3 through 7 of Block 5, and Lot 1 of Block 6 of Shepherd Hill subdivision, generally described as being located east of the current terminus of Philadelphia Street, and the recommendation from committee was to approve with stipulations. Motion of approval of stipulations by Solomon, second by Roberts. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 69, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Yasmin Dream LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for Lot K and Lot A1 of North Valley Park subdivision, generally described as being located southeast of the intersection of North Creek Drive and Eglin Street, and the committee recommendation is to approve with stipulations. Okay, a motion to approve with stipulations by Nordstrom, second by Stroman. All in favor of approval with stipulations say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 70, a request by Ferber Engineering, Inc. for Wayne Hellman for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 and 2 of Cabot subdivision, generally described as being located north of the Cabot Road terminus. And again, committee recommendation is to approve with stipulations. Motion by Drew, second by Jones. All in favor of approval with stipulations of item 70 say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Under bid awards, item 71, approve award of total bid for the Rushmore Plaza furniture and furnishings bid package 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 for Rushmore Plaza Civic Center expansion, project number 2452 of June 9th, 2020, to the lowest responsive bidder, Canfield Business Interiors, in the amount of $374,910. Motion to approve by Drew, second by Evans, and we'll go to John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask a question of Pauline, please?
Please do.
Pauline, what is this being funded out of?
This is part of the vision funding allocation.
So it's part of the money that we had set aside for the vision funding for this?
Correct. It's all part of that total $130 million package.
Okay, okay. All right. It's just kind of confusing the way it's coming through. I thought it would come through as a vision or a bond, part of the bond.
It's kind of funky because there's so many different things that they're actually going out and bidding for that they had to do the packages like they did, but it is being paid for out of the vision funds.
And eventually it will all be allocated into that all $130 million. Okay, thank you.
Is funky accounting term?
Yeah, that's
okay. Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm curious if Canfield Business, is that a South Dakota company? I'm not sure who I would ask. Well, I understand that, but I'm just curious if it's a South Dakota company.
Do we have Dale Tech in the other room, or anyone that can answer the question?
Yes, Canfield is a South Dakota company. It's based in Sioux Falls and has a Rapid City office.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yield.
All right. John Roberts.
sorry, I shouldn't have spoke out of place there, but really it doesn't make any difference because this is a contractor risk project and they have the right to take the lowest bid anywhere because that's part of the entire project. So it was just kind of a interesting question. I spoke out of place and I want to apologize.
Okay, we have a motion for approval on item 71. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us down to item 72, which is the bill list, and we'll go to City Finance Director Pauline Sumption again. That was his indoor voice.
There are no additions to the bill list. So as soon as this pops up, I'll tell you what the total is. Total is $13,036,226.16.
Motion to approve Nordstrom. Second by Jones. All in favor of approval of the bill list, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn, anyone? Several motions to adjourn. Is there any seconds? Seconds by most everyone. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.